Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Today we're delving into a timely and pertinent discussion. Is it ethical for companies to use personal data for targeted advertising? This issue sits at the heart of navigating the complexities of digital ethics in our interconnected world. We have two distinguished guests to explore this. Sarah Miller, a marketing executive, and Dr. Ben Carter, an ethicist and privacy advocate. They will present their opening statements, followed by rebuttals and a moderated discussion, before concluding with their final thoughts. Let's begin.
Thank you, Alex. I believe that targeted advertising, when approached with strong ethical principles and transparency, is not only permissible, but also a highly valuable tool that benefits both consumers and businesses. For consumers, this means encountering advertisements that are genuinely relevant to their interests and needs, rather than an irrelevant barrage of messages. It facilitates the discovery of new products and services that they might actually appreciate, leading to a more personalized and streamlined online journey. Think about how much easier it is to find a niche hobby supply or a local service when advertising is tailored. This isn't about intrusion. It's about efficiency and relevance, saving people time and effort. From a business perspective, particularly for small and medium-sized enterprises, targeted advertising allows for far more efficient marketing expenditure. It enables them to reach audiences who are genuinely interested in their offerings, leveling the playing field somewhat against larger corporations with vast advertising budgets. Furthermore, the revenue generated from advertising is fundamental to supporting the vast amount of free online content and services that we all enjoy daily. Without it, the internet as we know it would likely operate on a very different, potentially subscription-heavy model. Crucially, this all hinges on robust ethical frameworks. I am a strong advocate for transparency, meaning clear, easily understandable data use policies. User consent is paramount, with straightforward opt-in and opt-out mechanisms readily available. Data security is also non-negotiable. We must distinguish responsible, targeted advertising, often using anonymized and aggregated data, from practices that are genuinely intrusive or exploitative. A mutually beneficial relationship is entirely achievable.
Thank you, Alex. While Sarah paints a picture of symbiotic benefit, I must contend that the current practices surrounding the collection and use of personal data for targeted advertising pose fundamental ethical risks that, in my view, significantly outweigh these purported benefits. Privacy is not a commodity. It is a fundamental human right. The reality is that data collection is often pervasive, non-transparent, and far more extensive than most users comprehend. We're living in an era of pervasive surveillance, where our digital footprints are meticulously tracked and analyzed, often without our fully informed consent. This constant monitoring creates detailed profiles that can be used for more than just selling us products. There's a significant potential for manipulation. Advertisements, especially when hyper-targeted, can exploit psychological vulnerabilities, nudging behavior in ways that individuals might not consciously choose, particularly concerning sensitive areas like personal health, finance, or even political views. The notion of meaningful consent in this ecosystem is, I argue, largely an illusion. Users are frequently confronted with complex, lengthy privacy policies written in dense legalese. The terms of service often present a, quote, take it or leave it scenario, effectively coercing consent if one wishes to access a service. Many are simply unaware of the sheer scope of data being collected, or how it's being combined and used by third parties. Furthermore, the algorithms that drive targeted advertising are not neutral. They can embed and amplify existing societal biases, leading to algorithmic bias and discrimination. This can manifest as digital redlining, where certain demographics are unfairly excluded from opportunities, or it can reinforce harmful stereotypes. The erosion of personal autonomy and the insidious nature of data commodification are profound concerns that we cannot afford to overlook for the sake of slightly more relevant advertising.
Dr. Carter raises valid points about privacy and the potential for misuse, and I agree that these are serious considerations. However, it's important not to paint all targeted advertising with the same broad, negative brush. The ethical frameworks I mentioned are precisely designed to mitigate these risks. When data is handled responsibly, with genuine transparency and user control, personalization is not inherently manipulative. It can be, and often is, genuinely helpful and empowering for the user. Many in the industry are actively working towards greater transparency and enhanced user controls. We've seen regulatory developments like GDPR in Europe and CCPA in California, which, while perhaps not perfect, represent significant steps in the right direction, pushing companies to be more accountable for their data practices. The idea of, quote, pervasive surveillance can be alarming, but it's important to understand that much of the data used for targeting is anonymized or aggregated. This means it's not about tracking individuals in an identifiable way, but rather about understanding broader trends and preferences to make advertising more relevant and less wasteful. There's also a clear value exchange. Users receive access to a wealth of free content and services supported by this advertising model. This is a far cry from some nefarious intent to control or exploit. It's about making the digital ecosystem sustainable and accessible.
So while I appreciate the emphasis on ethical frameworks and industry efforts, I remain skeptical about their current efficacy in truly protecting individuals. The concept of user control often feels like a veneer of choice when faced with the colossal power of large technology companies. Users may have access to settings and policies, but the asymmetry of information and bargaining power is immense. Do people truly understand what they are consenting to, or are they simply clicking accept to access services they feel they cannot do without? You mentioned anonymization, but the techniques are not foolproof. Numerous studies have demonstrated the potential for re-identification, especially when datasets are combined. The promise of anonymity can provide a false sense of security. Furthermore, the algorithms themselves remain largely opaque. These black boxes make it incredibly difficult to audit them for bias or discriminatory outcomes. Even with the best intentions, unintended negative consequences can arise and persist undetected for too long. The commercial imperative to maximize engagement and profit often seems to override purely ethical considerations. Until there is a fundamental shift in this power dynamic and a greater degree of enforceable accountability, these problems will persist.
Sarah, Dr. Carter mentioned algorithms as black boxes. How can companies truly ensure transparency when these systems are so complex?
Transparency isn't about revealing proprietary code, but about clearly stating what data is collected and for what purpose. We can also offer users more control over their ad preferences and provide explanations for why certain ads are shown. Audits for bias are also increasingly important.
Dr. Carter, if not targeted advertising, what are viable alternative models for funding free online content and services?
Alternatives include contextual advertising, which is less invasive. We could also see a rise in subscription models, micropayments, or even publicly funded digital infrastructure for essential services. The current model isn't the only possibility.
A key concern is the line between personalization and manipulation. Where do you each draw that line?
Helpful personalization offers relevant choices based on inferred interests, always with user control and transparency. Manipulation involves exploiting vulnerabilities, using deceptive tactics, or creating discriminatory outcomes, especially in sensitive areas like finance or health. Clear consent is vital.
That line is crossed when data collection lacks genuinely informed consent, or when profiling aims to subconsciously influence behavior. Even if not overtly discriminatory, algorithmic bias can perpetuate inequalities, making the distinction from manipulation quite blurred in practice.
In closing, I want to reiterate that targeted advertising, when executed with a steadfast commitment to ethical principles, transparency, and user empowerment, offers a clear pathway to a more personalized and efficient digital future for everyone. It supports businesses, fuels innovation, and keeps a vast array of online content accessible. The challenges are real, but they are not insurmountable. Through continued dialogue, robust industry self-regulation working in concert with thoughtful governmental oversight, we can harness the benefits while mitigating the risks. Our industry is capable of, and committed to, ethical innovation in this space, ensuring that advertising serves, rather than subverts, the interests of the individuals it reaches. It's about finding that responsible balance.
To conclude, while the allure of efficiency and personalization is understandable, we must not lose sight of the fundamental ethical concerns and the very real risks to privacy and personal autonomy posed by current targeted advertising practices. These are not minor issues. They go to the heart of safeguarding fundamental human rights in the digital sphere. What is required is not merely incremental adjustments, but a more principled approach. This includes stronger legal protections for personal data and far greater scrutiny of corporate data practices. Ultimately, I urge a broader societal conversation about shifting towards business models that do not depend so heavily on the pervasive collection and commodification of personal information. Our digital future must be built on a foundation of trust and respect for individual dignity.
Thank you both, Sarah Miller and Dr. Ben Carter, for your insightful contributions and for articulating your position so clearly on this complex subject. You've given us a great deal to consider. It's evident that there are no easy answers when balancing innovation, commercial interests, and fundamental ethical principles in the digital age. The debate over data privacy and targeted advertising is clearly an ongoing societal conversation. We hope this discussion has provided our audience with thought-provoking perspectives to reflect upon. Thank you for joining us.